You know, there's a question that puzzles millions of people today, and I don't know, maybe you're one of them. Here's the question. How can I love Jesus and cringe at Christianity? I mean, it feels like a contradiction, doesn't it? How can you be drawn to the object of a religion and repelled by the religion itself? But here's what I've discovered over 40 years in ministry, and that is this is not a contradiction at all. In fact, depending on your circumstances, this may be the most healthy thing that you could be feeling right now because of what's going on around you. And it's healthy because Jesus and Christianity are not the same thing. Jesus is a living person. Christianity is a system. And in our last episode, we talked about this quiet exodus, 40 million Americans alone, who have left the church in the last 25 years. So today, we're going to explore the paradox at the heart of that exodus. You know, how can you be drawn to Jesus and repelled by Christianity, and more importantly, why that's okay? Hi, I'm Chuck Quinley, and welcome to the Grounded Podcast. And here we're building stable lives anchored in Jesus, even while the world shakes. This season is called Read Jesus Everything. And we're cutting through 2,000 years of tradition, theology, and division to rediscover the Jesus of the Gospels so we can know him, receive his life, and join his mission to save the world. Now, maybe you've read the Gospels. And maybe you're moved by Jesus's compassion, his radical inclusion, his challenge to hypocrisy. But then you look at the Christianity around you today with culture wars, scandals, obsession with power and money, and you think, this is not what Jesus taught. And you're right, it's not. So today we're going to explore three things: what Jesus actually modeled, what Christianity has become, and why the gap between these two things is so painful, and what it means to us. You know, if you really want to know what Jesus is like, you have 6 sources in the Bible: the 4 Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, plus the book of Acts, and the last book of the Bible, the Revelation of St. John. These are the earliest, and they're the most reliable accounts of Jesus's life, teaching, death, and resurrection. And when you read them for yourself, you observe many things, but here's a few. Number 1, he welcomed outcasts, tax collectors, prostitutes, Samaritans, lepers, women, children, whoever society rejected, Jesus welcomed. He didn't just tolerate them. He sought them out. He ate with them. He touched them. He defended them, even in public. Second thing you'll see is Jesus challenges hypocrisy. His hardest words were not for sinners. They were for religious leaders. He called them whitewashed tombs, blind guides, hypocrites. He said that they shut the door of the kingdom of heaven right in people's faces, and yet they would travel over land and sea to win a single convert. And when you have succeeded, you make them twice as much a child of hell as you are. I mean, wow, those are strong words. Jesus wasn't being mean. He was being truthful. He saw that religion can actually function as a barrier between people and the God it represents, and he refused to let that stand. Third thing you see is Jesus always prioritized people over rules. You know, every society has to have a set of behavioral guidelines to even be able to function. But in his day, when the religious leaders criticized him for healing or allowing his followers to gather wheat to eat on the required Sabbath day of rest, he said, the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. The point was, Jesus consistently prioritized the circumstantial needs of humans over any system of larger rules. The thing that probably stands out the most when you study the Jesus of the Gospels is his concept of radical love. I mean, listen to what he says. Love your enemies. Pray for those who persecute you. Turn the other cheek. Go the extra mile. Give to everyone who asks. Forgive people 70 times 7. I mean, his ethic of love is so radical that even today, it sounds impossible to accomplish. You'll see Jesus confronting the entitlement of those who are in power. He stood up to the establishment, to the Roman Empire, the religious authorities of his day, the bankers. He overturned the tables in the temple. He refused to bow to political pressure. He spoke truth to power, even if it cost him his life. But the thing probably that touches our heart is that Jesus offered grace to a woman that was caught in adultery. He says, "Neither do I condemn you. Go and sin no more." To the thief on the cross, he says, "Today you will be with me in paradise." And to Peter, who denied him 3 times, he offers full restoration. His message was always grace first and transformation will follow. This is the Jesus of the Gospels. This is the Jesus people are drawn to. He is uncompromising. He hates hypocrisy. He has a clear mission, and he is willing to die for it. And then we look at the Christianity, and there's not just one, so we have to say Christianities. It's the Christianity that you specifically are in, because they're different from other people's, but it doesn't really matter. You look at that and you say, you see something very different from what you see in Jesus. It's never perfect, Now, let me go ahead and say, I am not here to bash Christianity. It's too easy, doesn't fix anything, and frankly, just seems juvenile to me. I'm more about where do we go from here? And honestly, Christianity has done immense good in the world. If you had to weigh it out and say, would the world be better if we'd never had Christianity? Absolutely not, because of Christianity directly. We have hospitals, universities, orphanages all over the world, and the concept of universal human rights, that all humans are made in the image of God. Christianity has been a blessing to humanity in so many ways, but today, all is not well with Christianity. And if we're going to be honest, we're going to have the integrity to acknowledge that there's some things that have gone wrong. And this gap between what it's supposed to be and what it is, why does it hurt so bad? Well, psychologists call it cognitive dissonance. It's what happens when you try to hold 2 conflicting things at the same time. It's deeply uncomfortable. Your brain wants consistency, coherence, alignment. But when you believe it's one thing, but you experience it differently, creates this tension. And how different is how big the tension is. Like sometimes we're just talking about they're minor human flaws. I mean, just live with grace and get over it and keep moving. But sometimes we're not talking about small things. I mean, there are things that have been done in the religious organization of Christianity that they're damaging, they're criminal, and we have to acknowledge this. This is the reality of what we're dealing with right now. Millions of people are having an experience where they read the Gospels and they see Jesus. They see compassionate, radical, grace-filled Jesus. They're drawn to him. They want to follow him. They love him, and they go to the place that says, this is the Jesus place. And then they observe the ongoing flow of activity and priority and messaging in their particular form of organized Christianity. And they think, this is not that. This does not match. They both have the same label, but they don't match. And that dissonance, it's crushing. And what makes it even more painful is when you connect these 2 things mentally and you say to yourself, if I have a problem with Christianity, I have a problem with Jesus. If this is the system Jesus established and you have trouble with it, then you have trouble with Jesus. If you reject your church, you're rejecting Christ. And sometimes you might even be told something like that, or that even that you're questioning is evidence of the rebellion in your heart. And so you feel guilty. You wonder if something's wrong with you. You try harder to make it work, and you try to ignore this disconnection just to have a faith life, but this dissonance, it won't go away. It gets louder, and eventually you face, this can happen, what feels like an impossible choice. It says something like this: I can either stay and live with this dissonance, or I can leave the structure of my Christianity and risk losing my relationship with Jesus. But I think that's a false choice, and I think it's a devilishly false choice. There's a third option. You do not have to choose between blind compliance with flawed religion and the wholesale abandonment of Jesus, because Jesus and Christianity are not the same thing. Let me explain what I mean by that. It's a key insight, and it changes everything for me. Jesus is a person. Christianity is a system. Jesus is alive. He is dynamic, personal, relational. Christianity is a set of beliefs, practices, organizational structure, activities, traditions. You can have a relationship with Jesus because he's a person. You can't have a relationship with a system. Another way to see it is Jesus is the center. Christianity is a circumference. Jesus is the bullseye and everything else. Your church's history, traditions, denominations, theologians, they're all in an outer ring around him. And if there's a conflict between Jesus and Christianity, Jesus must always win. And personally, if there's a conflict between how Jesus says to live and how I actually live, Jesus must always win. Because Jesus is the standard. Christianity is the attempt. What I mean is that Jesus is a perfect revelation of God. Christianity is humanity's imperfect attempt to follow him in an organized way, culture by culture, century by century, and we are going to get it wrong sometimes. We're going to mess it up. But that does not change who and how Jesus is. Here's the bottom line. You can be drawn to Jesus and repelled by Christianity because they are not the same thing. And if you recognize that distinction, that is not a sign that you are a spiritual failure. It's a sign of healthy discernment. It means you're paying attention, you're thinking. It means that you are reading the Gospels with your eyes open, and you're looking at your church and your faith life with your eyes open, and that you are not going to settle for a version of Christianity that does not align with Jesus out of loyalty to Jesus. And this is exactly what we need. We need a new reformation. So what do we do with this? How do we move forward? Okay, if you're experiencing this disconnect, you're drawn to Jesus but repelled by Christianity, let me just lay down a few quick points. One, you're not alone. Millions of people are experiencing the exact same thing. This is not a fringe movement of angry ex-Christians. This is a massive global reckoning with what organized Christianity has become. Secondly, you are not crazy. This disconnect is real. The gap between Jesus and Christianity is a real thing. You're not imagining it. You're not being overly critical about it. You are seeing clearly. 3, you're not weak. In fact, the opposite is true, because it takes courage to question an organized thing as if you're in a minority. It takes courage to push back, to refuse to settle for practices that do not align with Jesus. For me, this is strength, not weakness. But 4, I want to say there's a way forward. You do not have to choose between staying in a broken system or leaving Jesus behind. There's a third way, and this way involves neither blind compliance nor a wholesale abandonment. And it's the way of re-Jesusing everything. And that's what this season of the Grounded podcast is all about. So here's where we are so far. 1, we've acknowledged the quiet exodus of, in America, 40 million others who've left the church. And this has gone on around the world. And we've explored the paradox at the heart of that exodus, that you can be drawn to Jesus but repelled by Christianity, We've established that this disconnection is real and it's painful and it's not your fault. But there's even more going on in this story. This is why this is so important to me, because it's not just people on the fringes, those who go to church twice a year, who feel this disconnect. It's people in the trenches. I'm talking about pastors, ministry leaders, missionaries, church staff. That's my world. These are people who have dedicated their lives to serving Jesus, but they find themselves emotionally exhausted from running this machine they've inherited. Now, in our next episode, we're going to talk about the slow erosion of energy, what it's like to serve in the ministry, even while you feel increasingly disconnected from the presence and power of Jesus himself in your ministry. We'll explore why so many faithful servants are burning out and what it means for the future of the church. I heard from somebody today who sent me a message and just said, this was her exact words, Jesus doesn't want me in an organized religion anymore. And a lot of people are feeling this, but as we go deeper in this, because this is a journey for us, okay? Take your time with it, because there's implications everywhere you look. Humans are communal creatures. We have to approach this in community, and the way of Jesus requires community. So in some ways, this is just housekeeping that every single generation is called upon to do, because things never stay the same. You come back to your house after a month away on a vacation and stuff's broken. You never realized how dirty that front porch was, and you got stuff, but now you see it more clearly. I just think in some ways, this is a normal thing that's going on that our generation just has to deal with it. But what is hitting me so hard is that this crisis is not just about people leaving. It's also about people staying and slowly dying inside. We don't know what's coming for us. Jesus said the pressures on his church will increase as you near the time of his return. And the weakness of the current system is so great that, to me, because I live in the part of the world where if you're going to be martyred, it's probably in this region. Hundreds of thousands of people have lost their lives, even per year, in not such recent past here in the 1040 window nations. We live in the Golden Triangle as a family. So that pressure is real, and I don't think the current version of Christianity that many of us are living in has any ability to prepare people to deal with those realities. But I want to go back to what I was just saying about those in ministry. If you're in ministry and you're exhausted, this next episode, it's for you. And if you know somebody who is struggling with this issue, please share the podcast with them, because it's important to me to talk to as many people as I can. There are just so many that are, they're believing they just have to walk away from all of it. They don't understand that there's nuance to this. That you are able to wrap your arms so tightly around Jesus and to be more loyal to him than ever, even as you try to work out what you're going to do in an organizational, human community way to walk as a disciple of Jesus. Okay, well, let's dive into the discussion question for this week. I really hope that you will visit us at quinley.com, which is our home base, or on the YouTube platform, and jump into the discussion question in the comments section. Here's our discussion for this week. Where do you sense genuine attraction to Jesus? Like, what makes him so beautiful to you? And where does Christianity feel more like friction than fuel? Okay. Until next time, I'm Chuck Quinley, and thank you for joining me on Grounded this season. Read Jesus everything. I'm excited about it. Let's get grounded.